Hey friends. This is Rose, Coach Rose AJ, coming to holla at y'all again. Y'all, on this episode of the Carnivore Connection, we have the lovely Stephanie, who has an exquisite and beautiful story, as well as a lovely accent. So I'm going to be mesmerized while we're in this interview, and I will be sipping my coffee. So thank you for joining us today on the Carnivore Connection. Stephanie, you go ahead and take it away, my dear.
Hi, Rose. It's great to be here and share in the carnivore journey. We were saying just before we started rolling that it's so important for us to stand up and inspire other people, as you said, who look like us, who may never have heard of this way of eating. And I think of it as eat like your ancestors, feel like a warrior. And I think that's what this way of eating is all about, really. I'm Stephanie Taylor, as you said, and I was just minding my own business, going along in life. But we did have quite a few similarities because growing up, I could eat any kind of food. We had very big appetites. We were quite thin, but I can actually remember eating sugar out of the sugar bowl. So I did have that sweet tooth as well, and that stayed with me. And although I can be very disciplined, and I would put a lot of effort in over months and sometimes longer, taking on a new diet, trying to lose weight, and it all unraveling. And we understand now that it was a struggle because I'm guessing my insulin was so high over all that time after years of eating, excuse me, healthy carbs. I'm putting the inverted commas because now we know those carbs are not healthy. And if we're doing it every single meal, bread, and cornflakes, orange juice. People think that is a healthy breakfast. And I used to do the oats with the fruits and the honey, think that was a healthy breakfast. Then lunchtime, you'd be eating more carbs. Maybe it's a sandwich. And then dinner time, you'd be eating more carbs. And some of the time, the irony is you would go to a restaurant and turn down the steak to eat what you thought was the healthy pasta that came with all these dressings and whatnot on it to make it taste good. And, so it's just a sugar. We're drowning in a sea of sugar. And that was really me. And then a few years ago, I thought, Steph, you've got to sort of get a grip on this overweight for so long, on and off, up and down. And I thought to myself, what could I eat that I can just eat every day and maintain my health, maintain my weight as well? And I thought, I know you're supposed to eat protein, but I know you're not supposed to eat meat. I know that fruits and veg are good. So what I did was in the morning, I would have eggs, only two, mind, because, they're not that great for you to have too many. So I'd have two eggs as an omelette or some whatever, two eggs, and then a huge plate of vegetables. And I used to fry these vegetables, caramelize the onions. I used to love it. Anyways, and then in the afternoon, I would then have another plate of vegetables, this time with chickpeas and all sorts of olives and different bits and pieces in it. And I thought, okay, this is healthy. And I carried on like that for, a few years, and it seemed to keep my weights kind of stable. I would have, falling off the wagons every now and again, but overall it was working for me. But when I hit the age of 50, I want to say 51, I started to notice I was extremely tired, such that I don't like to call it tiredness. Want to call it fatigue because it sounds more medical. And I got fed up with people saying, "Oh, you're a busy person, you're this, you're that." No, this was this was not normal tiredness because I'd already been here for 50 years. I'm familiar with how you feel when you're tired and then you have a rest and you feel better. This was like a sense of fatigue, and it was like a sense of pushing a rock uphill. It was just a sense of my energy is not working. And I was still doing what I was doing and carrying about my business, but I was just aware of this, uh, pulling me down. And I had this, I had I had a few situations where I wasn't able to participate in things that I really wanted to do because of this incredible fatigue.
Were you in the stages of perimenopause or menopause at that time?
Well, I was still having my periods, and so of course, even when and they were very regular. Um, so, but you can be in perimenopause, I suppose, even before your periods become irregular. So, to my knowledge, I could have been, but who knows? It depends how you define perimenopause. I was having regular periods. And
Well,
so that's what people were saying. Oh, that's what happens. And I just thought, this cannot be it because,
well, the reason I asked you that is because I had hit my rock bottom in 2018 and I was overly fatigued as well. My mental health was in the gutter and whatnot, but I was going through perimenopause. But I think that mostly reflecting back, it was the diet, the blood sugar roller coaster and the whole
yes.
nine that we look for in the aftermath. But I generally like to ask that question because sometimes people can tie the fatigue to
Yeah.
perimenopausal symptoms, but we need to encourage them to also look at their diet as well. So carry on, my friend.
Yeah, I think the diet is everything because it's all those years of a low fat, so your hormones are not produced properly, high carbohydrate, excuse me, so-called healthy diet that messes us up. So that is a big part of it. So in my case, I found that it wasn't perimenopause that was my fatigue. Um, anyway, so I had this terrible fatigue. So I went to the doctors and I thought I've got to go with something for them to latch onto because I can't just go and say, well, I've got this terrible fatigue. I need to give them some information. And I knew that I had fibroids, and I'd known that since 2018. So they said that the fibroids were nothing, excuse me, nothing to worry about. I'd had an ultrasound. They said there's nothing to worry about. Now, I thought this isn't right. I don't want to have fibroids. I would have liked to have found a diet. Of course, they say that red meat is to do with the fibroids. I didn't have a lot of red meat in my diet. That's not true, by the way. We know now it's sugar, but I the diets I was trying was all on a low red meat basis, so I'm making it worse all this time. Anyway, when I went to the doctor, I said about the fatigue, but I also mentioned, could I have an ultrasound to look at these fibroids and see where they are and what's happening nowadays? So I went to have the ultrasound. So this is now October of 2023. And when I had that ultrasound in October of 2023, they took a long time over it and they started doing extra scans. And I thought, this doesn't look good. The previous time I'd had a scan, the GP hadn't been able to give me the results because he said that the GP is the general practitioner, the doctor you see at the surgery, couldn't give me the results because he said the woman at the hospital, the radiologist, is the only one who can interpret the scan. And his report didn't give a lot of information, and he doesn't have the scan. And even if he did have the scan, he wouldn't be able to read the scan. So I remembered all this. So while I was at the hospital and they were doing all these extra checks, I said to the woman at the hospital, I said, what are you seeing? What does it look like? Because I then related the story that the last time the doctor didn't have the information and I wasn't really clear at the end of it what was going on. And so this time I thought, I would ask you while I was here. Anyway, they said they can't say, and so I need to go back to the doctor. So I went back to the doctor, which you'll understand why she didn't want to say in a moment. And maybe that's a protocol because doctors know how to give the news in theory. Doctors know how to give the news. Anyway, I then got a call from my surgery saying that I've got growths on my ovaries. And obviously, my first thought went to cancer. I thought, that explains it now. That explains the fatigue. that explains everything. So I went to have the scans, MRI and a CT scan, and that confirmed. So over the period between October and then it was November, then there was December and Christmas, and I got the full um, diagnosis in the January of 2024. So a year ago today, of stage 4 ovarian cancer metastasized to the spleen, the liver, the the spleen, the liver, the omentum, the area inside the whole abdomen area, and then the bowel also. And so obviously quite a scary diagnosis. And I did, people say, oh, you're so strong. But obviously I went through every emotion, as you can imagine. I was um I was just so disappointed to miss out potentially on all the things I'd envisaged for my future that I didn't even know that I had envisaged. I have one sister, and we're very close. We work together, we're in business together, and we see each other so often. And I'd always envisaged us just growing old, little old ladies, reminiscing back on the times, looking after my mum and looking after our mum rather, and my son Alex, who's an adult, got his own place. I was hopeful to see him, get married, have children, if he chooses to do that, and just be there for it all. And I had envisaged that, and you suddenly find that this thing maybe have taken away from you. And so I was so sad for quite a while. I just burst into tears at anything, thinking, how are they all going to do without me? I'm sure just fine. And somebody said to me, who'd had a lot of ovarian cancer in her family, that she'd done everything she wanted to do and she was ready to go, at any time. And that really freaked me out because I thought, I'm not ready. I am not. I am not ready to go. I'm not ready to leave. I need to get my things. No, I need to, I'm not ready. So that upset me so much with that conversation. She wasn't intended. She wasn't intending to upset me. She was trying to give me encouragement. And and I was tightly holding on to, I'm not going to die. But actually, I found what released me was to just say, it's okay, that everything is going to happen exactly the way it was intended. And if I happen to go earlier than I thought or imagined or whatever, then that's okay. And everyone will do brilliantly well, without me. And that sounds sad, but it feels really releasing. And ever since I came to that way of thinking, it's really served me well. And it sounds like, you may have given up, but not at all. I do everything I can to maintain my health, and it's made me feel sure in my purpose. And, like you, Rose, I feel drawn to let people know because if I had had my diet dialed in all these years ago, I would not be suffering with, or I would not have the diagnosis that I have. And it's so simple to change your food. And the food tastes fantastic. And my sugar addiction is gone. I can go to places. I was at my grand's 99th birthday on Saturday. I know, 99. And there was birthday cake all around. And usually, or in the past, that would have been a challenge for me not to eat it. Now I didn't even taste it. I wasn't even interested in the cake. And I think it's been quite a long journey to get here. But I feel so grateful for the food that I now enjoy, for the freedom that we now have, and for the mission that we have to share it with people and help them to get the results that they want and get the freedom from food that they want as well.
Gosh, you are amazing. But before we continue, I do want to ask you through this time frame from your diagnosis, what kind of treatment did you
Yes.
have, and what were was your diet prior to your diagnosis, and
Yes.
what did the care look like, and where are you at today, if you
Yeah,
don't
great
mind?
questions. Well, it's good to know. It's good because people who have cancer, like myself, you're always looking to other people who've got a similar cancer to tell you the story of what happened to them. And sometimes you get new tips. So hopefully somebody will get new tips from this. So when I was diagnosed in January of 2024, I have always been aware of health and holistic health, not to the, and I've always looked into it. And, previously I'd been a vegan thinking that was the best for my health. And so when I got this diagnosis, I was aware that lots of people die from the chemotherapy or other treatments rather than actually from the cancer. So I was keen to try some alternative therapies, but the problem with alternative therapies is there's not a well-trodden path with an evidence base. You have to really go out there and look up and then just try things out randomly. And so I was reading and watching and reading, and I had seen research papers that said for ovarian cancer, oxygen therapy is very good. And there were actual medical research papers showing that it does shrink the tumors. And obviously, it's good for your whole body. The oxygen, your cancer grows in a low oxygen state, and your whole body obviously is in the oxygen state. So when you take the oxygen, it promotes your healthy cells and sort of shrinks your cancer cells. So I rented a hyperbaric oxygen chamber for home. I also heard that in far infrared sauna is good for you. And I love that as well. So I just thought it would be just a treat as well. But brings the toxins out. So as you're healing, toxins might be coming out, and as you're doing chemo, all of that. So I do use those two daily, and I do a little bit of I got an X3 system, which is like resistance bands and a platform, and you do a little series. Oh, have you got that as well? Uh,
No, but I believe in the ultimate strength training in any capacity. Rock
yeah.
on.
So what I liked about that is when I was feeling weak or whatever, I could do it because it was at home. It only takes a few minutes. And I also bought this was over time. It wasn't all at the beginning. But I just want to mention it all. A vibrating platform. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You got one too. And that's really good for moving your lymph, especially if you're not exercising a lot. And I bought a rebounder trampoline. So they do similar things, but so I do those. Those are my little daily routine. And I try to get outside because obviously being outside's good. I live in the UK and it's dark and cold half the year, so it's not always easy to get out. But I try to get out because feeling that air on your face, feeling the light in your eyes, it's such a tonic. And so I try to get out and do. I used to say 10,000 steps, but I try to get out for at least an hour's walk a day in the winter. So it's not always quite 10,000 steps. But so that's what I was doing. And at the time, at the very beginning, I was taking fenbendazole um, tablets, which is supposed to be a parasitic tablet that has been good for people with cancer. However, that didn't seem, all of that at the beginning didn't have an effect. The reason being, I'd only just started, so I got the diagnosis in the January. It took me a while to find out all the things to do, to wait to order the things, financially, etc. And so between January and March, just as I was getting these things into position, some of them, the beginning ones, the oxygen tank and the and the sauna, my belly had grown massively, such that, and it was just like with ovarian cancer, what happens is uh, when your cancer is growing in your belly, it releases a liquid. It's some sort of inefficient growth that releases a liquid into your belly. It's called ascites, but basically it looks just like a baby, because obviously when you're pregnant, your belly is filled with fluid as well, and your baby is in there. And so it was just like that. So by March, I would I was fine when I was at home because or going about as normal. I would wear slightly loose jumpers, put a scarf, put a waistcoat, and but with the waistcoat, when you looked from the side view, you couldn't see anything. You couldn't see this bump sticking out. However, if we were away, instead of doing my little routine at home, I would go to the hotel gym. So I put on my gym clothes, which is leggings and a top, and the top is tight. Anyway, as I went in the gym, people were congratulating me. Oh my gosh, when are you due? Oh my gosh, how fabulous. Is this your first? Blah, 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 blah. That it just looked exactly that shape. And I honestly didn't have the heart to tell them I'm not pregnant, I've got cancer. Just while they're minding their business trying to do their gym workout. So I would just say, no, it's not my first, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, excuse me. I got scared. So by this is January to March. I'm just about to start with any consistency this regime because now my oxygen tank has arrived and my infrared sauna has arrived, and I'm already on the carnivore diet. But I spoke to a couple of doctors who are familiar with, carnivore and alternative treatments. One of them was from an alternative cancer clinic in Turkey. And I said, what would you do with my stage of cancer, and my type of cancer as a natural therapy, or would you take the chemotherapy? And they both said independently that because of the way that it is, i.e., it was growing fast, and because of the type of cancer and the stage, etc., that they would have the chemotherapy and continue with the alternative treatments. And that was where my heart was at as well, because one of the things you learn, Rose, and you know this yourself, is you learn to trust your intuition because with a situation like this, with a situation like this, the doctors are only guessing, the medical doctors. And uh, even with their own medical treatment, over 50% of people die of my cancer within a year of, um, and obviously the numbers go higher the longer it carries on. So even if you take all of their advice, you've only got a 50-50 chance. So when I obviously thought about this a lot myself, and I thought I'm only doing things that I agree with because if the chance, if they were telling me I've got a rock solid solution for you, this is how it's going to be, and you'll be fully recovered, obviously I would take up everything they said. But basically, they're telling me, well, they didn't put it like that, but they didn't put it like you've only got 50-50 chance of being here in the year. But I just look online and you just get to know the information. And I just thought to myself, I'm only doing what I feel is the right thing to do. So even though I'm aware that chemotherapy can be deadly for many people, etc., I still went ahead with the chemo because at the time I wasn't aware of another therapy, natural therapy, that could reverse it. And I think certain cancers, such as pancreatic and brain tumors, it's not just one thing. which will heal that cancer. Like it's not just the diet. It's not. It's a whole host of things, and so I'm trying to bring a whole host of things to it to bring the best health I can. So um, to cut a long story short, I had three oh dear, I forgot the name of it now. Carboplatin, Paxitaxel, sorry, Paxitaxel and carboplatin, just in case any listeners recognize the name. And I had three of them. So each time it was for 6 hours, and you would have it one day and then in another in 3 weeks, and then another in 3 weeks. So over the time, it was about 9 or 10 weeks by the end of it, and I'd had three sessions of the chemo. And at the time, because so this is now, I've been diagnosed in January. I didn't do anything up until March. So now between March and June, I've had these three sessions. So it was great because I seem to manage to tolerate the chemo quite well. Now, they say it's best if you can fast. I certainly was doing carnivore, but I was also a little bit stressed and not out of sorts, and I wanted comfort. And so I was eating two really good meals a day. And although early on I managed a 7 day fast, I think it left me so traumatized because the first few days were easy, and then the last few days were really hard, and I really pushed myself. And I think maybe I should have just said, okay, just do 3 or 4 days, and then next time do 5 days. But anyway, I didn't feel able to fast again. I couldn't get myself into that mode of fasting again. And so as I went through chemo the first time, I wasn't fasting and I was eating carnivore, but I was eating a lot of food. And and sometimes I was falling off the wagon as well through it all. So I just want to give love and empathy to anybody who's listening who's got cancer and you're not finding the wherewithal right now. Um, but as the story went on, I became much more resolute and much more easier, much more loving it. And just to bring it to a close of where I got up to. So that was June of this year. I finished the chemotherapies. Then in August of last year, sorry, June of last year, I finished the chemotherapies. There's August last year, I had all the blood tests again and the scans. And I thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. The scans are going to show everything's gone. My belly had gone down back to normal, and I felt great. And I was surprised because the scans showed that half had gone, about half, and half was still there, but it was dotted around all over the place, as I mentioned earlier. It was all over the place in little bits and pieces here and bits and pieces there. So I thought, oh, that was not what I was expecting. However, the cancer marker had gone down into the normal range. So for ovarian cancer, it's CA125, and it gone down to normal range, which was under 35, and mine was like 17. And previously, at the start of all this, it'd been 1156, so 1156, and it'd gone down to 17. So I thought, brilliant. Maybe it doesn't matter that the tumors are still there because the cancer marker's low. Maybe it's not active anymore. Maybe it'll continue. So then I had the choice of having an operation. So with the operation, if they don't get it all out, there's basically it's no point in having the operation then because it comes back. If they can't get everything they can see, the problem for me was that because it's on all these different organs and the bowel, and the sort of operation I would need would require, 3 or 4 different surgeons, one for each different organ. And I was told that that's obviously a big operation. I could end up with organ damage of some of the organs because, they have to cut a margin. I could end up with having my bowel removed or part thereof and ending up with a colostomy bag. Um, and I says, well, what's all this? If I do this, what extra do I get? Does this extends my life basically. And they said on average 18 months. So I thought, nah, I'm not go there because what I've realized through this whole thing is it's not just life, it's also quality of life. And you would be recovering from that operation. And it's not just there are certain known risks which they're talking about me, but there's also unknown risks and crazy things that can happen in it, especially with an operation that big. So I was hopeful that I would continue my all my different practices and my white blood cells would come back up because with chemotherapy, usually for most people, your white blood cells come down. So mine had come down, and I was hopeful the white blood cells will come back up. My own systems will kick in, and I will be able to, my body will be able to continue the healing process. That was my thoughts. And also, my body will be able to heal from the chemo and all the rest of it. So I thought, let's take a break. And if any symptoms return, then I can continue. So that is the situation that I'm in at the moment. But things can change and I may need to go back into treatment. And hopefully, at some point, the tumors will shrink so much that I will be able to have an operation that's, not as big as the one that I would need to have had before.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I truly appreciate that. How are you doing mentally and emotionally with this?
Yeah.
I'm just stumped listening to it, to be quite candid. How are you doing? How is Stephanie doing?
Yeah. Well, I'm doing really good. As I said at the beginning, I would just break into tears for no reason. I would think of all the people left behind. I would think of all the things I was losing. But now I just feel good. I feel glad that I get to be here. I get to be here now. I get to do all the things. And this little thing, this incident with the cancer has meant that I feel so much more open-hearted with people, so much closer. Like people have shared things with me that they would never have shared before. And, I feel like the personal connection with people, it just seems to have brought the right kind of people into my life. And also it's just shown me my mission to help people to heal and, not to have to go through, not to have to go through cancer or amputation or blindness or deafness just because of blood sugar issues.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the experience that you're currently in, you're actually grateful for because it's brought you closer connections and you're
Yes.
able to share your journey and help
Yes.
others on their path. Did I
Yeah.
summarize that okay?
Sorry?
Did I summarize that okay?
Yes. Yes. That's
Okay.
perfect. That's exactly it. That's
So can
exactly
I
it.
ask you, I don't think I picked up on what dietary protocol were you following prior to getting going carnivore, and when did you transition into carnivore, and what was your reason for the carnivore diet?
Well, I was eating that vegetables and eggs and then chickpeas and veg. Yes, and it was only two eggs, so it was mainly veg. So what kind of foolishness is that? So it's no wonder I got sick. I don't think it was just that. I mean, there's been so much sugar, carbs, processed stuff. I've eaten everything over the years and I've got a big appetite. So whatever I was eating a lot of it. But so I was eating that, but just a few months before I got the diagnosis. So obviously, this isn't what caused the cancer. The cancer built up over many years. Um, but just a few months before I got the diagnosis, I was just minding my business on YouTube. And I'm always open to health ideas. We'd already become certified health coaches, but we weren't coaching at that stage. We just did it for our own information, my sister and I. And we, sorry, we, yes, I saw it on the YouTube video. Lisa D, who wasn't somebody I watched on the regular. I just saw one of her videos come, but I did like her and I'd seen a few of her videos. Um, and she'd come up and said she's been 3 years carnivore and it's amazing. And she looked absolutely phenomenal. She's in her 50s as well. And I thought, wow, carnivore. Would you believe I had never heard of it? I'd never heard of it. Obviously, everyone's heard of keto, but I'd never heard of carnivore. So I was mind blown by this whole thing, this whole video. If you'd have been watching me, my literally jaw would have been on the floor. I just could not believe what I was hearing. And I then obviously started watching all the other videos, Ken Berry and others, Anthony Chafee, yourself. All the videos came up, and No Carb Life with all those stories about people's healing on carnivore. I just was mind blown. But the same day, this is how it spoke to my heart. When I heard it, I knew it was true. So when I heard that carbs are sugar and sugar messes everything up and insulin and all the rest of it, I just knew that that is the truth. And I felt sick that so much of my life I had been avoiding the red meat and the fat and the food that's actually good for me. But I went out the same day, Rose, and I bought some meat, some steaks, and I came back, and the following day I had steak and eggs. And then I threw out all the veg, but I still had a bit of hummus in the fridge. So I kept the hummus in the fridge and I ate, in fact, it might have been bacon and eggs for breakfast and then steak and eggs for lunch. But I put this hummus on it as well. I thought I'd just use up this last bit of hummus. And that was my first week on carnivore. And I just thought, this is it for me. I'm never eating any other way. This is the healing. My whole body could feel it. I think a lot of us are out of sync with our bodies. We can't feel intuitively inside our body. And I find that eating on the carnivore, it's like your cells are speaking to you. It's like your intuition is speaking to you. It's like everything's tuned in. So, because also I had the intuition of, I'm tired. I'm going to go to the doctor, but I'm going to ask about the fibroids. So something in my body, in my subconscious, knew that something was amiss and told me, this is the thing. And that was obviously after I had gone carnivore when I had that insight. I think it does clear up your mind, and I think it helps that connection between your mind and your body.
It's
Um,
it's just that it's your mind and bodies are no longer clouded by the sugar, the inflammation. We're able to think, right?
mhm,
Think, and the processes are just so, I think, transparent. It just comes
mhm.
readily. There's nothing blocking it. So I totally get it. The zen, the wherewithal. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
are amazing, my friend. Amazing. A couple of questions that I want to ask you. I want you to tell me about your health certification that you went
Mhm.
through and how you and your sister are helping other people. And where do you see your coaching practice, let's say 3 to 6 months from now? Where would you like it to be?
Yeah, yeah. And then I would love to talk to you about the eating protocols for maintaining deep ketosis, because that's really important for people with cancer, people with mental health, or people with autoimmune issues that they're healing. But to talk about the coaching, we certified through the Life Coach School. And Do you know the life coach school?
Girl, I did too. That's another story for another day back in 2019, but I'll maybe off air go there with you. But you go ahead. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, we certified through the life coach school, and then we did some additional training in keto and carnivore coaching. And how we actually decided to start the coaching, because previously we were coaching on property and how to be successful in property if you're starting with little money in the UK. And we wrote a book on it called Rent to Rent Success. Um, but when I became really convicted that I wanted to change and I wanted to coach people on health, and one of the things that moved me in this direction was my mum. Now, my mum had called me up one day and said she had been to the eye doctor and she's got glaucoma, and the eye doctor lasered her eye and also said she might go blind. They can't do anything now, but if it gets worse, they can do something. I said, Mum, don't let them laser your eye again without speaking to me, because you hear of people. I listened to all of Dave's episodes, Dave Mack on No Carb Life, and he had a guy on there, an African American guy, um, and on a low income, and he'd lost the sight in both his eyes, and one of them was through an operation, unnecessary operation that they did for the money. And he'd had his feet amputated. It was just a horrific story. It was a horrific story, Rose. I was actually in tears by the end of that one because it was just the unnecessariness of it. Anyway, I said to Mum, do not have any more lasering. I said, Mum, you've got to change your diet. I wouldn't go on at you, but it's going to stop you from going blind. Anyway, Mum was extremely receptive, couldn't wait to get started with it. She went out the same day and bought the food. And then we've got a family WhatsApp group. She started blowing up the WhatsApp group with pictures of what she was eating, bacon and eggs. Or she said, "Now I can't eat steak, Steph, for breakfast, but she'll have the bacon and eggs, and she has all the food that she likes." And she wasn't that keen on having no veg. I said, well, you can just have a few low carb veg if you feel you need that, but if you feel you can leave it out, leave it out. And she's doing very well. We actually saw her because it was my grand's 99th, and things like that made me want to share the world, because the doctor will let you go blind and never tell you. And the doctor will cut off your hand, foot, finger, toe, and they'll do multiple amputations on you. Some people start off having their toes cut off, then it's up to their knee, then it's up to their thigh. Or then it's one foot and then it's the other foot. And it's barbaric. I remember there's a doctor, I can't think of the name. He stopped doing it because he hated the sound of the foot falling into the metal bucket. Amputations are barbaric, and in 2024, 2025, there's no need for it. But sometimes people will put on my posts, but you're not a doctor. And I says, well, go to the doctor, because if you go to the doctor, they will cut off your hands and feet before they will ever tell you that you can reverse type 2 diabetes with diet alone. And for most people, it's weeks, and for some people, it's months. But everybody can reverse it easily, but they will cut your feet off before they tell you. And every single day in the UK, this was a statistic that really shocked me. Every single day in the UK, which is a small country, 60 million people, 25 people have amputations due to diabetic complications. And it's just so I knew that I wanted to be a voice out there, like the many other voices, like the voices where I found it, like you. I wanted to be a voice like you, and letting people know that you can change your health through what you eat.
Amen, sister. Amen. Amen. And I want to say that on my journey alone, I'm a person that went to the doctor every year for the women's exam and just a physical every year, like clockwork. And although I had been battling obesity, there was like a 10-year stretch where I had stabilized with a 110-pound weight loss. But Stephanie, I'm going to tell you because I have a binge eating disorder, sugar addiction, the whole nine. I didn't know it back then. My doctor said every year, oh, your lab work looks fine. Never addressed my weight, never asked me about drugs, alcohol, the whole nine. Not that I was doing drugs and alcohol, but I got kind of got mad. I kind of got mad at the system because they were keeping me in the system and not helping me with my mental, emotional, and physical health, right? And when women get angry, we either sit down and take it like a doormat. And I realized that I still had one more fight left in me. And my one more fight was is that I had to come out as though I was a fighter fighting for my life because God told me that if I did not leave the career that I was in, that my mental health would not be fully restored to its full capacity, meaning I had 7 more years before retirement. And Stephanie, and this is what I want to share. I listened. I moved. I didn't move very swiftly, right? And at the same time, I learned about the ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, and whatnot. And it still took me 6 months to make that big leap of, getting off the standard American diet. But I still had tendencies, if you know what I'm saying, to binge,
Yeah.
relapse, and the whole nine. But I stopped drinking alcohol October 2018, right? I just
Yeah.
stopped. And, it was just incrementally that I got there. But none of this was with the help of professional medical people. I had to go in and figure it all out for myself, right? And I had allowed life to beat me into submission. That's what it was. And I said, I got to keep fighting. I got to keep doing this thing. So long as God has breath in my body, I've got to keep on keeping on, right? And
Mm.
never, even to this day, I've told my doctors that I'm carnivore, that I don't do the standard American diet, that I don't do these things, but you still need your fruits and vegetables. And it is what it is. I'm taking care of my health, my mental health, the best way that I know how, and it's through bibliotherapy, as well as continual learning, as well as coaching, right? Because we learn from others, right? So it's crazy, but you're so correct that they will chop off a limb continually. It can start with the toe, go to the ankle, go to the calf, and the next thing you know, it's your whole leg. But this is where we've got to wake up, America. I don't care what your age is, I don't care your ethnicity. You guys have got to wake up and realize that the medical, the pharmaceutical industry, it's a big business along with the processed foods and everything. It's a big business and they are all joined at the hip. So the best thing that we can do is remove those ingredients that are drug-like foods and start thinking clearly. And if we don't know the answer or the question, hit up Google, hit up YouTube, go where you can go and find the answers because the establishment, whatever the establishment means to you, is not going to tell you until you're on your deathbed and beyond. Okay, I'm sorry. That was a PSA.
We got to do it.
Yes,
You got
yes,
to
we've got
preach
to
it.
do
You got to
this.
preach it,
Yes.
Rose.
I'm sorry. I just had to go there. I am just so passionate about it only because if I didn't live this story for myself firsthand, maybe I wouldn't have believed it. Right. But the time that I had that 10-year hiatus, my mental state, and when I say hiatus, that means the 110-pound weight loss that was supposedly successful. I over exercised when I say over exercise, it was a compulsion, it was a must. I over wrote everything. I wrote everything that I was eating and adding things up. If somebody would have told me that it was the sugar, it was the carbs that was driving you to this capacity, maybe I would have found food freedom sooner,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. So we're here preaching it from the rooftop, sister. We've got to do it. Yes.
We are. And
Yes.
I
So
didn't say that I had a significant weight loss from it's a UK size 20 to a UK size 10, which is I think a US size 16 to a US size 6 um is
amazing.
was my weight loss. That was over keto and then into carnivore. But a lot of it I did on keto because I've only found carnivore very, very recently. But what I find with carnivore is because most people with cancer, it's easy to put on weight because you're stressed out and other things. You insulin resistant often because that's how one of the things that drives the cancer. So so it's been such a blessing to have this way of eating. And the final thing, or one of the things that I just wanted to quickly mention is if because, like me, you may be in a situation where it's very important to be into a therapeutic level of ketosis. And just being on carnivore doesn't necessarily put you into ketosis. So I wasn't really in ketosis. I would be like zero point 0.2, zero point 0.5, maybe somewhere up to one every now and again. But generally speaking, when I was carnivore, uh, I wasn't really in ketosis because I was eating so much protein. But recently I tried a few things and I found a way of staying in therapeutic level of ketosis. So for example, this morning my ketones were 3.5 and I measure you take your glucose and you take your ketos and you divide it to get your glucose ketones index. And your glucose ketones index, if you're under 3, that's a therapeutic level of ketosis. And so this morning, my GKI, glucose ketone index, was 1.3. And I keep it with it. I record it at the moment. I'm recording it every day because it's important for me at the moment with my diagnosis to manage my health to that level. And for me, it doesn't feel painful. I just do it in the morning. When I wake up, and I do it in the evening when I go to bed. And if anything goes awry, I obviously adapt to what I'm doing. But to achieve that, basically, you eat a lot less protein than maybe you would be used to. And I didn't feel like I could do that at the beginning. And you eat fat, which I didn't feel like I could do that at the beginning because I thought, what fat am I going to eat? Because I don't like rendered fat. Most of the fatty meat that you get here, most of the fatty meat that you get in the UK, like if you buy ribeye, it's got fat in it, but it's not the level that you need. So you need, so according to the Paleo Ketogenic Diet, you need 35 grams of fat to every 100 grams of protein. And you only need like about zero point 0.8 grams of protein per, oh dear, is it kilogram? It's probably kilogram. It's a small, yeah, it's a small amount. So it's a smaller amount than most people are useful. So that's what they're saying. That's about the protein you need. And for every 100 grams of protein, you have, sorry, not 100 grams of protein. For every 100 grams of lean meat, because the 100 grams of lean meat is not 100 grams of protein. For every 100 grams of lean meat, you have 35 grams of fat. So I started doing that. For me, I worked out that I can stay in ketosis by eating 200 grams of lean meat, and that would be 70 grams of fat. But if the meat's already got some fat in it, I'll reduce the 70 grams of fat. So so I didn't think that would be enough for me, but I started doing that, and I found most days I will just have that one meal, and because of that higher level of fat, it does keep me satiated, which surprised me because I was considered myself a big eater. But certain days I will think I am really hungry in the afternoon, so I'm going to have 100 grams of the lean meat and plus 35 grams of fat. And there's all different ways of doing it because over the time I've learned that you can get beef cheek, you can get beef ribs, and you can get other meats that have just more fat in them, so you don't have to add the fat. But I just want to give that little tip because if I had known this earlier, I could have stayed in therapeutic ketosis earlier. And I think if I'd been in therapeutic ketosis when I went through my chemo, it would have really helped me more. So if I do need to go through chemo again, I'm going to make sure that I'm in therapeutic ketosis. If I can add fasting, I will. But this gets me almost the same results as fasting without fasting and being hungry and feeling like your stomach is eating itself.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing that about the GKI and being in therapeutic ketosis for your health condition and whatnot. Now, most people would definitely be surprised that being on a carnivore diet, you're not automatically in ketosis. And I'm glad that you mentioned the protein ratio and whatnot. Now, I kind of cringed up when you mentioned lean meat. Okay, so I'm like, lean meat. So, what kind of lean meats do you eat at this
Well, I'm not
time?
really eating lean meat, to be fair. I eat 20, if I eat, I'll eat a ribeye steak, which is a fatty meat, but um, well, it's not that fatty in the UK, I've got to say. Um, I eat 20% minced beef, and then I'll have occasionally, or it's becoming more regular, because now I'm doing this, beef cheek, beef rib, which all are fattier meats, but almost all of them are not 35% fat. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. And so I need to add the relevant amount of fat. And that was another thing. I know that people can just eat the butter. I don't feel 100% on dairy, so I don't want to be eating just a stick of butter. Just and then once the fat melts, I don't want to be drinking it either. So very fussy. But I did find that once we had beef fat, once I got beef fat, first of all, I was just crisping it up in the air fryer. It was very crispy. And I started doing fat fasts. So I would get the fat. I've got a reel which shows what I do. Um, and I got the fat, put it in the air fryer, 40 minutes, 20 minutes you turn it. It comes out really crispy. So I could eat that. But what I'm finding now, as time goes on, I've also, in my air fryer, I've got a little dish. So now I can measure out the raw fat. Say it's 50 grams because of the amount of fat that's already on the meat. I'll put that in the air fryer for 10 minutes. And then I'll add whatever meat I'm having and maybe cook it for 5 minutes because now I'm moving more towards rawer meat. And I find, and that means that um, I've got all of the meat and fat, and I make sure that I get all of that into my bowl so that I've lost nothing. Because before, when I'm making the fat crispy, I'm losing all that tallow, which I do keep, and I've got it all in the freezer ready to make into tallow cream. Uh, Um, but it just makes it a little bit easier.
Girl, you go now. I'm not down for making anything other than what's in the pan in front of me and eating it all right then and there. So the fact that you're repurposing it and making tallow is amazing. But what I do want to go back to real quick in a hurry is your coaching practice.
Yes.
I want to hear what kind of clients do you serve?
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
have coaching groups? Do you do
Yes.
one-on-one? And where do you want to see yourself in 3 to 6 months? I want to hear all about it
Yes.
because I'm a coach too.
I know that you're a coach, and we're quite similar then in that sense. So we work with people, men and women actually. Women, of course, feel so attracted to us, but we surprisingly we do have quite a few men as well who come to work with us. So it's over 40s, and it's basically people who've got issues. Those are the women that we work with. So, Dr. Chafee says, and Dr. Barry says, just eat meat till you're full and the weight will fall off and you'll be fine. And it is for many people, especially people who've had that. In Dr. Chafee's case, they've been carnivore since they were young, they're very athletic, etc., etc. It just works. There's no issues. But women over 40, 50 and beyond, there's hormonal issues, there's obviously insulin resistance. And so what we work with them is to, oh, sorry. What we work with them is to to do the tweaks, like I was just saying to you, maybe a fat fast. They've got the weight loss plateaus. I work with a lady with PCOS. She's my favorite, Sharon, and she has said that I can just say her story. Um, she was feeling so overweight. She was having issues with her legs swelling up, arms swelling up. She had cysts, and it was a struggle for her to go carnivore. So first of all, we started off at keto, and then she would still fall off the wagon, fall off the wagon. But she kept going. She kept going. And one of the things that we do as part of it, we do a 90-day, we call it a reset. And it's not carnivore because not everybody can go straight to carnivore. And we want to work with people where they are. We're taking people towards carnivore as far as they need to go to reclaim their health. And what we do is we work with them for 3 months. So they have one-to-ones before they start, after month one, month two, month three. And then we also have group calls every week. They all get 3 CGMs to work to. So as we're working with them, the first week they eat what they normally eat, plus any treats that they often go to, because what we want to do is see what the baseline is. And then the second week, they go to the plan that they've chosen for themselves with our help in the previous one-to-one. And then we look at the difference and we share our notes as a group. And then we continue on like that. And so that's why it's so powerful, because there's the one-to-ones, the group community, and also there's the accountability of wearing your CGM.
Girl, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. And I have to say that you're considerably far more detailed than I am. So, as far as for me, I know that it takes a lot, like you said, from people to get to work from where they're at towards carnivore. And I want to serve all people. That's my thing. I want to serve all women that are 50 years old and older. But this is what I realized in the last year, that I cannot serve all people that are 50 years old and older because they don't have the same agenda long term, right? Which is getting off of these processed foods. They want a temporary fix. And
Mm,
so I've created some group challenges, group calls, and stuff like that, that I just want to disseminate the information, right? I want to disseminate the information because hopefully sooner rather than later, they will pick up on what we're trying to put down and they won't be overwhelmed, right? So I love that you have them starting with the CGM, starting at their baseline and moving towards something. And I think it takes all kind of coaches, all kind of experiences to reach all kinds of people, right? So hopefully they'll pick up on something before it's too late, quote unquote, right? Just get educated in the process. So I love that. So now where can people find you? And tell us the name of your practice and, talk to us, girl.
Thanks. It's called Happy Sexy Health because we want it to be about obviously happiness, sexiness, being vibrant, and obviously health. So it's called Happy Sexy Health, and we have Instagram, we're on YouTube, and we've got a primal body assessment. So if anybody is interested in doing the primal body assessment, it's a quiz, you see where you are, and then you get a one-to-one with us. And we do have people in our 90-day reset from America, and we also have from Australia, and also we're in the UK. So it's great having this incredible global community. And I think, Rose, anybody who comes to us is open to eating like their ancestors, feeling like a warrior, and they're open to bringing in the meat. We won't work with anybody who can't eat or, isn't able to eat meat, because that is where all of that nourishment comes from. Um, but I know there are other coaches who can help there. Yeah.
I would like to know, so what are some of the benefits that you have received or experienced we mentioned the Zen-like state that we are more connected with ourselves. But what are some of the other things that you have experienced for yourself since being on the carnivore diet that are positive?
Yeah, I think the Zen state, the brain focus, the mental clarity is really a big deal because what you can do in the world is so important, but it's really curtailed if you do not feel good. Um, so that's one thing. The weight loss and the weight maintenance, the ease, and the fact that now I'm not controlled by food. That is massive. So if you'd have asked me a few years ago, oh, write down what you eat in the day, that's quite a difficult job because I could go here, I could go there. There might be something in a waiting room. There might be something that I pass. Somebody might offer me something. I've got no control, or it felt like I had little control over what I was going to eat for the day. It was not mapped out. And now it's ironic, but I feel so much freedom, even though the foods I eat is, I wouldn't say limited, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing a lot of the time. And it's what I love because I can choose to eat anything I want. And this is what I choose because it nourishes me, it makes me feel good. And for me at the moment as well, especially. It makes me feel like I'm nourishing my health. It makes me feel like I'm nourishing my body. It makes me feel like I'm helping my body every day when I eat.
That is beautiful, beautiful. I like the fact that you say that it's limited, but actually there's so much freedom, Stephanie, that I find when people ask me, isn't that a bit restrictive? And I'm like,
Mm.
no, it's not restrictive because when I have too many choices, I take all of the choices. I'm not a moderator, I'm a total abstainer. But it's only in recent years that I found that out, right?
Yeah.
For myself. And being carnivore, I know what I'm going to eat. I know that this is the list of things that I'm going to eat, and it is what it is. And I have meals on repeat, which are basically
Yeah.
hamburgers and eggs. It's
Yeah.
just very
Yeah.
simple, right?
Yeah.
Very simple. It takes the guesswork out. Did you find that some of your tendencies for like sugar addiction or particular foods, I always call them preferences, like I prefer, yada, yada,
Yeah.
yada. Did you find that those went away immediately, or was it
No.
trial and error? It didn't go away immediately.
No, 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 no. It was trial and error. And my body, it's an emotional reaction, isn't it? That comfort, that going back to that place. You've had a stressful day, you're tired, you're going on a walk you didn't want to go on. Now you're passing a shop. Oh, wouldn't it be nice just to have a little something? So I had to learn, and that I was priding myself recently. I just thought, gosh, Steph, well done. Because now I don't go to food for emotional comfort. And that took a lot of work. But it's not that long a time because May 24. So in May 25, it'll be 2 years. So it's maybe a year and a half. And I've come to this place of such freedom. Now, as you know, things can go in cycles and you can be flying high 1 minute and in the ditch the next. But it's such a different feeling that I feel confident about myself and my ability. I feel I feel convicted. I feel driven to eat the food that's good. And this other food is just BS food. And you just start to see it as poison and a slow poison. And over Christmas, because we're talking in January, over Christmas, my family was coming, and usually we have a tradition of baking a cake together, and we love the baking of the cake together, and we love the eating of the cake. But this year, I didn't want to have anything that's not carnivore, low carb around, especially because mom's now on the low carb train. And so I thought I would make a carnivore egg custard and a carnivore ice cream. And I found, even though I just had a small portion of the carnivore, because the carnivore ice cream, I did admittedly have some of the normal ice cream, not a huge amount, but I felt so ill. And I think it might have been I'm not good with a lot of dairy. I think maybe that was it. It might have been the sugar because obviously my insulin went sky high. There wasn't sugar in the carnivore versions, apart from the like the milk sugars in the cream that was in the egg custard. But and that just showed me as well. I don't want to do this. I do not want to go off. And you've heard, how proud I am of my GKI and I'm in ketosis. And then I was right out of it, um, for a day or so before I came back. I mean, I was eating right straight away afterwards. And yeah, I don't want to do it anymore.
If you had, if you knew of someone in your same circumstances or similar, what words of wisdom could you offer them? For me, it was like, just get up off the couch, give life one more shot, right? So, how would you give some words of wisdom to somebody that's in your similar circumstance to give it one more shot?
Yeah, I think I would just listen and love and listen because people take my this diagnosis in lots of different ways. But if they had told me that they want to be changing things and doing things and they want to change their diet and they've seen that I've had some success and they want to do it, then I would go back and say we go through what their goals are, what they're eating at the moment, and where they feel that they could take the first step. Now, some people like myself, I'm not saying because I was still eating the hummus for the first week, so I didn't go all the way to carnivore, but quite close. And other people want to keep a few vegetables and this and that. So, or other people are eating 4 carbohydrate meals a day plus Diet Coke and all these snacks. So the first step might be taking out the Diet Coke and the snacks and making the first meal a protein meal. So we would come to a plan that they feel good about and that we feel good about. And we know that we don't all have to do everything in week one because I like to give people 90 days is like a transformational time frame. It's 3 months of focus and it's also enough time to see really strong results. So that's how I would approach it.
All right, that is beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on to the Carnivore Connection and having this conversation. It's been an honor to get to know you a little bit better, Stephanie. And I just can't wait to see what the future holds as far as conversations or maybe collaborating on some things. And just
Yes.
having two sisters, two people of color, same age range, same focus as far as supporting people and improving our health day to day. Remind people again one more time where they can find you, my dear.
So Happy Sexy Health on Instagram and Happy Sexy Health on YouTube. I'm also on Facebook at Happy Sexy Health. You can message me anywhere. And in the notes, Rose has put a link to our primal body assessment. So if you want to do an assessment, see where you are now, and also have a one-to-one with me, do that assessment, and I'll contact you about a one-to-one.
Thank you so much for your time again. All right, guys, this is Coach Rose AJ signing out on the Carnivore Connection. Until next time, holla at his sister and be good to yourself.